Thank you for tuning into the Generational Gauntlet, Top 5 Faves. This is the podcast where we give you our top 5 on a topic with a generational twist to it. My name is Matt Lambert, and I'm the host of this podcast. Each week, I bring in a guest who's from a different generation than me to discuss or debate our top 5 on a selected topic. So I've been living in South Carolina since 2020, and one of the things I've had to get used to is the idea of tropical storms and hurricanes. I was here during Hurricane Ian, which was my first hurricane experience, and the guy guiding me online as to what to expect with the storm is my guest for this episode, and that is Dave Williams, the Chief Meteorologist for ABC News 4 in Charleston, South Carolina. Dave is a Gen Xer, a Buckeyes fan, and if you follow him on social media, he's someone you can both learn a lot from and be entertained by. And he's the voice of calm and reason in the middle of hurricane season. So Dave, I really appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedule to jump on here. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for coming in. How are you doing this evening?
Thanks, Matthew. I'm doing great. Just trying. Honestly, right now, I wish we would get a tropical storm so we could get rid of this drought.
Yes, I cannot remember in the time I've lived here this long where we've been without precipitation. This is, you can speak to that better than me, but this seems record breaking to me.
So I did look it up, and earlier today, in the last 2.5, almost 3 months, that's going back to the beginning of February, we've only gotten between 2 and 3 inches of rain. It's not much. So
Yeah.
it's been very dry, and we've had droughts in the past, but this one, it's not fun. I'll tell you that right now.
No, I'm doing a lot more watering of stuff at our house than I would like to be. Um,
Correct.
yeah, so Dave, before we jump into today's top 5, we're mixing things up a little bit on this episode, and you're fully aware of this. I think some of the listeners are as well. June 1st is the official start to hurricane season in the Atlantic, and I want those listening to be able to get some information to be prepared for the season. So we have the local hurricane expert here to answer some questions that I had and some questions that some listeners had about what to expect or about preparation. So, Dave, you're the Chief Meteorologist for ABC News 4. How long have you been in that role?
Yeah. So I've been here 15 years and
Okay.
in the chief meteorologist spot. Before that, I was the morning meteorologist and I hosted Low Country Live. So I've been in Charleston for 20 years now. And
Okay.
before that, I was up in Florence, Myrtle Beach.
Hmm.
And my baptism to tropical weather was the 2005 hurricane season,
Okay.
2004, 2005. So, I mean, that's when we're talking about storms like Katrina.
Oh, yeah.
um, we had some big storms. So my very first year, it was Francis, Gaston,
Hmm.
Charlie, Bonnie, Ivan. I mean, it was just storm after storm after
Yeah.
storm. And then 2005 was Katrina, and I
Hmm.
watched that from Myrtle Beach. So um, I didn't grow up here, but
Yeah.
I have huge knowledge of tropical systems.
Hmm.
In fact, one of my first memories of weather was in Myrtle Beach in 1979. Um, yeah. So date myself right there. I was not very old, but we went to Myrtle Beach, and a couple weeks before we got there, Hurricane David went through,
Yeah.
and it just devastated the coast of South Carolina. Even though it wasn't a major storm when it came through here, it was a major storm when it went through the Caribbean, but it washed the entire beach away. And there's a picture of me and my dad sitting up on top of a cliff that my mom took from where the beach used to be
Oh,
down where
wow.
the ocean was. And I actually still have that picture today, and I remember it just like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
Uh, so tropical weather is my thing.
It sounds like it. And prior to being the chief meteorologist and going all the way back, you've got your bachelor's in atmospheric science from the Ohio State University, correct?
You said it properly. Yes. Yes.
So the kind of foreshadows our topic later today is going to be Buckeyes related when we get into our top five. But I know you mentioned being up in Myrtle Beach. Where were you at prior to Myrtle Beach? Like, where else have you worked?
So when I graduated from Ohio State, I worked in a ski store selling skis and ski coats for downhill snow skiing, and I also worked in a fish market. And
Okay.
between those two jobs, I made a whole heck of a lot more money than I did at my first job in TV. Yeah.
That's
So
funny.
right. So I did that for about 9 months after I graduated. And I had been working there for a while. Honestly, they were great jobs, but it just wasn't what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So when I got my first opportunity, I was the weekend meteorologist in Steubenville, Wheeling.
Hmm.
Steubenville, Ohio, Wheeling, West Virginia. I worked there for 3 years as the weekend meteorologist, and I actually lived in Pittsburgh and drove
Okay.
over to Steubenville, Ohio. Our station was in Mingo Junction, Ohio. So I worked atop Altamont Hill, and it was a great experience. It really
Yeah.
was. Just absolutely wonderful people, and it
Hmm.
really set the framework for me to be a television meteorologist for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So it was a great place to work. And then after I worked there for 3 years,
Hmm.
and after that, I so Wheeling Steubenville was about an hour and 15 minutes or so from where I grew up, hour and a half
Yeah.
maybe, and nobody ever came to visit me. And I said, "Okay, I'm gonna go to Myrtle Beach now." And I got a job in Myrtle Beach, and all of a sudden, everybody started showing up at my doorstep. So, no
I
offense
mean,
to the folks in Wheeling Steubenville. Love y'all.
hey, I'm from West Virginia, and the beach has a lot of benefits that maybe Willing Northern Panhandle doesn't have. So I can see why you got a little bit more visitors. And Dave, you can correct me on any of this if I'm wrong. You're also a member of the National Weather Association, the American Meteorological Society, and you hold a seal of approval from the NWA. Is that correct?
That is correct. And the National Weather Association really holds a dear place in my heart. I do mentoring through the
Hmm.
National Weather Association. I go to their annual conference, and
Oh, nice.
it's just a place where I can get together with other meteorologists who are like-minded with myself.
Yeah.
So it's a fantastic organization,
Hmm.
and you don't really have to be a meteorologist to join. So if you are a weather enthusiast,
Yeah.
you can certainly join the National Weather Association.
Well, there you go. If any listeners are interested, you guys got a plug in there from Dave, so something you could check out. And Dave, this episode's going to release. We're recording this at the end of April. This is going to release in May. And I already mentioned it, June 1st. We're looking at the official start to the hurricane season in the Atlantic. We have a lot of people that listen to this podcast in South Carolina, some places on the East Coast elsewhere. And going into hurricane season, I know this is a broad question, but what are some of the things that people should be doing to get prepared for the season right now?
Well, the big things are, and really the big thing is every time of the year, you should have a disaster preparedness kit
Hmm.
ready to go, because not only can we be impacted by tropical systems, but we can also be impacted by severe thunderstorms with
Hmm.
tornadoes and strong winds, and we can also be impacted by earthquakes.
Yeah.
So that's out of my area of expertise, but you have to always be ready for any sort of natural disaster. So you've got to have a water supply for at least
Hmm.
3 days. You've got to have some canned food. You have to have a way to open that canned food. So an opener to go with it. I suggest paper towels. I suggest everything you need to survive for about 3 days
Yeah.
until somebody can get to you. And this isn't too far of a stretch of the imagination, because just 2 years ago, we had Hurricane Helene,
Yeah.
and Hurricane Helene, of course, it came on shore in the Big Bend of Florida, and it ripped up Georgia really good up
Hmm.
through. And when I say really good, that's a bad thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it really devastated places like Valdosta,
Hmm.
Augusta, where they play the Masters, and then it just unleashed on Western North Carolina.
Yeah.
Western North Carolina had about 4 or 5 days of rain prior to Helene coming through,
Hmm.
so all of their creeks, their streams were at capacity. And then you bring in a tropical system that's going to drop a foot or more of rain, and the the creek beds, the stream flow just could not handle the
Yeah.
amount of rain. And I was up there about 3 or 4 days after Helene came through. And honestly, where I was, most of the places had electricity, most of the places still had internet.
Yeah.
The one thing they didn't have was water.
Mm.
And without water, it is just awful. You can't
Yeah.
shower, you can't wash your hands, you can't wash your face, you can't even flush a toilet. And when you think about that, it's not something that most of us have to deal with on a daily basis. So, not having water is kind
Yeah.
of the worst. So, before a storm comes through, I recommend for everyone, not necessarily for drinking purposes, but fill up your bathtub
Mhm.
full of water, because then you can flush your toilet, then you can wash your hands, then you can wash your face, things like that. Not having water,
I
I never thought about it, but it was brutal.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's like the most one of the most basic things we need as a human being, and it's something that I'll be honest, when we've went through tropical storms and Hurricane Ian here, I didn't do that. I had bottled water, but it wasn't on my radar of flushing the toilet, being able to wash my hands, etcetera. So not even something I had thought of until you said those things today. And, it's funny because I think, water is something we're talking about that people I know when I was down here for Hurricane Ian, I went to the store and people were like almost fighting over cases of water. I feel like toilet paper is one of the first things to go. I, is there like an item at the store that we're all missing that you're like, hey, it's great that you got water, it's great that you got toilet paper, but you're missing this item at the store? Is there something we should be getting other than those items?
Honestly, I think you said it before you asked the question. You said people were just being crazy. And
Yes.
no, I'm dead serious, and that's the way I approach weather. You have to approach it in a very matter of fact,
Hmm.
um, common sense way, and you should not lose your mind. You
Yeah.
should, because if you are if you're doing something out of the ordinary and you're not comfortable, then you're going to make bad decisions.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing that everybody needs to keep in mind is just keep your cool. Stay calm. It's seriously, it's not something you can buy at the store.
Yeah.
It's what you have to do. You have to just kind of look out for each other and
Yeah.
be a good steward of the community and help each other out. Yeah, don't hoard toilet paper. Don't do things like that. We'll all look out for each other, but
Yeah.
you've gotta just really calm down and make good decisions.
Yeah.
And that's why I present things in the way that I do, in a very
Mhm.
factual manner, because hopefully people do make good decisions.
Absolutely. No, I love that it's not something we gotta purchase, it's a mindset. That's what we need to, be checking ourselves with when these storms are coming in. And, you talked about people having water. You talked about having enough supplies for 3 days. Specific to, like, people's homes, their yards, their maybe even their vehicles, are there things that people should be doing either now, before we know a storm's coming, or even as storms approach?
Absolutely. One of the biggest things is your insurance.
Okay.
Make sure you have your insurance up to date to include tropical systems. So have a discussion with your insurance agent.
Yeah.
Make sure that you're ready for hurricane season.
Great
That
advice.
that's probably number one.
Okay.
Um, Outside of that, it's a good time of year, especially since we're in a drought and there are no storms anywhere close to us. Look at the trees around your house. Look to see if there are dead branches, or if the tree itself is dead,
Yeah.
and take care of that now, because chances are a dead tree is going to blow over during a
Mhm.
hurricane. So take that out right now. Make sure it's ready to go. But otherwise, most of the things you can do in the few days ahead of a storm, like bring in
Yeah.
your patio furniture, bring in your grill, things like that, that's pretty easy stuff that you can do within about 15-20 minutes
Yeah.
before a storm comes in. Unless you have a much better landscape backyard than I do.
So basically, take in all the projectiles, get those out of the wind so they aren't things that
Uh,
are flying through the air, is what I'm
Correct.
hearing.
Well, and that meteorologists actually do have a term for those things, and it's called missiles. So if those things do become airborne, yes, they turn into missiles. And even if you're not around to be hit by it, your house is around, and other people could be around to be hit by it. So yes, make sure to just kind of tie everything down
Yeah.
and bring things indoors.
No, great advice. And if we talk about hurricanes specifically, if and this is where we're going to go very specific to this area. How far inland should people be concerned about? And I guess this is two questions. One would be wind, and then two would be storm surge. Like, how far inland should people be concerned?
Sure. So I'll give you an example. Well, Hugo can be an example for both of
Okay.
those, and that's a benchmark storm for all of us here
Yeah.
in South Carolina. Hugo in 1989 brought 21 to 22-foot storm surge into
Wow.
McClellanville. Yeah, it was the whole ocean coming in.
Yeah.
As far as storm surge, it's going to come in typically no more than a mile,
Okay.
but you also have to keep in mind that if you live on a tidal creek
Hmm.
or anything that is impacted by the tide, that water comes up and goes down as the storm surge comes in. So
Yeah.
even if you live on a tiny little creek and you've never seen it flood before, there is the possibility that it could flood during a hurricane.
Yeah.
So if you live on a tidal creek, you need to get away from that area and move inland. One of the things I want to say too about hurricanes, we've had a lot of hurricanes that move up the coast.
Yeah.
They come up from Florida, they kind of skip right along the coast and then move up toward Myrtle Beach, the Outer Banks, and we get kind of brushed by the outer edge of it.
Yeah.
So those typically aren't going to be too bad. What I'm most concerned about is a storm that hits us at a right angle.
Okay.
So if a storm comes straight at us, kind of like Hugo did,
Hmm.
that's a worst case scenario because it hits you at a right angle. There's nowhere for that storm surge to go except inland.
Makes
And
total sense. Yeah.
then to the second part of your question about the wind, Hugo was moving pretty good.
Hmm.
Hugo was moving about 22, 23 miles an hour. Hugo pretty much cut a path from McClellanville to Charlotte, right through the Francis
Hmm.
Marion Forest. Um, Wind is not the biggest thing you have to worry about in a hurricane, but if you are in that wind area, it's not a place you want to be. You can usually get yourself to a safe place away from windows in the interior of your house. And Hugo, so I was 13 when Hugo hit, and I was a middle school student in
Hmm.
Northeast Ohio, and Hugo actually came over top of my head in Northeast Ohio, and it was still
Wow.
a tropical storm.
Yeah.
So, as far as wind, you've always got to be prepared for that, but the water is what you have to be
Okay.
most concerned about. So, if you live on a tidal creek, if you live in a flood prone area, those are the people that really need to evacuate first.
Okay, makes sense. And then I know we've talked about storm surge, we've talked about wind. Are there any other elements during we'll say a major hurricane that people should be concerned about beyond just the storm surge and the wind?
So those are going to be the two major things, and
Hmm.
folks get so worked up about the word tornado. Um,
Yes.
I know. It's not something you want to see coming toward your house, but honestly, the straight line winds with a hurricane are even worse than a tornado. Usually
Yeah.
a tornado within a hurricane is an EF0, EF1. They're
Hmm.
usually not too bad, but it's certainly something in addition to the storm surge and the straight line winds that we have to pay attention to. So storms like Irma
Yeah.
put down a lot of tornadoes here.
Hmm.
Ian put down a lot of tornadoes here.
Yeah.
So and those are things that we're prepared for, but those really aren't the things that kill people. And
Yeah.
honestly, this past year we had some pretty bad winter weather back
Hmm.
in January and February. So to put everything into perspective, more people in January and February of this year died in winter weather than
Mm.
died in Hurricane Hugo in South Carolina.
It's a wild stat, but I can see it. Being
Yeah,
from somewhere where and same as you, somewhere where I dealt with a lot more cold, and I know moving here, a lot of people, obviously, homes aren't as insulated, people aren't as used to the weather, so that's while it's a surprising stat, at the same time, I can say
thank you.
I can see that happening. I
Yeah,
definitely can.
honestly, for us, most people make good decisions during tropical systems, and I try to reinforce that. But during winter weather, people don't have anywhere to go, and if you
Uh-huh.
don't have heat, then you succumb to the cold
Yep.
temperatures.
Yeah, and that stuff is extremely, extremely dangerous. There's a lot of people that I have back in West Virginia that I now have following you on social media. As I've told my mom, who gets very, and my mom's going to listen to this and say, "Why'd you put this out there?" She gets very nervous about the storms. I've told her to follow you. You're very calm. You're level headed throughout. Why do you think it's so important for people to follow a local source as opposed to national sources or people in other areas? Why is it so important to follow somebody that's here?
See, and that's 100% what you need to do. You
Hmm.
really do need to follow somebody local. I live here, but seriously, I'm making forecasts for myself, my
Yeah.
family, my friends. I would never want to put my family in harm's way.
Yeah.
So what I do every day, I really wear my heart on my sleeve, and
Mhm.
I just want to be very transparent, and I want to make sure that everybody gets through every storm safely. The big thing is you've got a lot of national outlets. You have people that have, I don't know, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of followers on Facebook,
Yes.
and they're like, this person knows everything about tropical weather. Well, that's fine. I know everything there is to know about tropical weather in Charleston, South Carolina.
Yes.
Um, I I learn lessons from every single storm, but this is my focus. My focus is not clicks. My focus is not typhoons in the Western Pacific. My focus is on the very small piece of area in southeastern South Carolina where we
Yeah.
live.
Yeah.
So, why wouldn't you follow me? I mean,
Exactly.
it's my focus. You might not agree with me, and that's fine. I don't do what I do for a popularity contest. I I
Mhm.
I do what I do to try to make sure the most people stay safe that possibly can.
Yeah. And Dave, when this episode releases, I'm going to be putting some links for ABC News 4, some links to your business page on Facebook, so that if people want to hear more of your voice of reason, they know where to find you. So that'll be in the episode description. It's also going to be on my socials on Facebook and on Instagram. And a question I got from somebody. So this is like, in terms of your entire career as a meteorologist, what's the biggest hurricane you've covered in person? And I mean, in person, not that you're in like the eye of the storm, but you were actually on the ground covering biggest storm.
Sure, and probably threefold. The
Okay.
first the first one for me, well, I mean, when I was a kid, Hurricane David, that was kind of
Yeah.
cool, but that was way after the storm.
Hmm.
But the first actual tropical system that went directly over, well, Hugo went directly over my
Yeah.
head, but on the coast, I was directly in Gaston, and Hurricane Gaston in 2004 went directly over my head, and it was just amazing to see. It was actually a tropical storm when it came on shore, and
Hmm.
then months later, the Hurricane Center went back and they said, "Oh, by the way, that was a hurricane." Right, right. I'm and well, and thankfully it wasn't too damaging of a storm. But I
Yeah.
said, man, that was the most well-defined tropical storm I've ever seen. So it went right over my head. And then Hurricane Sandy, I flew with the hurricane hunters into Hurricane
Oh,
Sandy.
wow.
So we flew out into the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. It was my first experience flying with the hurricane hunters. And the hurricane hunters don't fly up over a storm, they fly directly into it. We were at 10,000 feet. You could see every wave on the ocean
Oh,
down below us. It was awe inspiring. It was eye opening. It was amazing. And then after the fact, I mean, it came on shore in New Jersey, and it did kill a lot of people, but a lot of legislation has changed because
hmm,
of what Hurricane Sandy did, because it wasn't technically a hurricane when it came on shore. It was late in October, so it was in kind of a gray area between a big
Hmm.
old storm and a hurricane. And it doesn't matter if it's a big old storm or a hurricane if people's lives are in danger.
Yeah.
So, um, Hurricane Sandy changed a lot of things in the meteorological community,
Hmm.
and I'm thankful that I was able to maybe send back some information that saved some people.
Yeah.
So that's my hope. So that one and Hurricane Matthew. um, Hurricane Matthew came right up the coast,
Hmm.
and when Matthew came up the coast, I went to work. It was a Friday afternoon. I went to work about 10 o'clock in the morning, and right after Low Country Live was done, they said, "Okay, we're gonna start covering Hurricane Matthew as it comes up from Savannah and moves up the coast." And I said, "Okay, let's go." I got on the air at 11 o'clock in the morning on Friday morning, and I was done covering Hurricane Matthew at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday.
Wow. Holy
So
cow.
that's my record, 26 hours. And my family evacuated. They went up to Charlotte. So that was just insane. And I had just enough fuel left in my tank to watch the first half of Ohio State play Indiana. And and they won that game. Thankfully, they had it well in control by halftime, and I passed out for the second.
Wow. I love the Buckeye plug there that jumped in.
Yep.
Um, so
Because I live on the hospital grid, so
yeah.
I don't lose cable. I don't lose my electricity. So yes,
Okay. That's
I'm
good.
thankful for that.
Yeah. Well, before we get into these lists, I did want to share with you. So I obviously told some people you were coming on here to record an episode, and somebody wanted me to give you a personal shout out on here. And they said that, so they live in this area, and they said that you are the voice of calm for them during tropical storms, tornado warnings, and hurricanes. And once you give the all clear, when there's a tornado or something popping up, they know that they're able to be safe and move on with their day, and that you keep them calm through the midst of storms. And I wanted to tell you that because I know that I feel the same way. I know moving here and being concerned about what is a hurricane, what does all this do. You do such a fantastic job of keeping things calm, not instilling panic in people, reporting the facts, and hopefully you realize you have a lot of people out there who are watching you that you are making a massive impact on and really bringing a lot of clarity and a lot of calm to them in the midst of a storm. So, um,
That that's very much appreciated. I never resort to gimmicks.
yeah,
I don't roll up my sleeves. I don't throw my jacket across the studio. I just want to make sure that people have the best information
yeah,
possible and that they do stay calm, because as long as people aren't panicked, they are going to make good decisions.
yep, definitely. Well, Dave, we're going to transition here and we're going to jump into our list. So, for any first time listeners to the podcast, here's how this whole thing works. Today, our topic is our top 5 favorite Buckeyes. Dave's an Ohio State graduate. I'm a huge Buckeyes fan. So, hey, this is what we're going to do. If you're not an Ohio State fan, my bad. But Dave and I have each put together our list for our top 5 favorites. I don't know anything on his list. I'll be curious if we have any similarities. He doesn't know anything about mine. Here's how things will go. He'll kick it off. He'll tell us his number 5 and why. I'll tell you all my number 5 and why. And we'll keep it going that way until we get to each of our number ones. So, with that, Dave, I'm going to kick it to you. Who is your number 5 favorite Buckeye?
Well, first, I want to start with you left it open. I could do any sport,
Uh
and I couldn't. I just could not, because um, if I go to every sport, I would have three done within my first three, because you're looking at guys like Archie Griffin, the
huh.
only two-time Heisman Trophy winner. You're looking at guys like Jesse Owens,
Yes.
who stared down Hitler. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
come on. And then you've got Jack Nicklaus, the best golfer ever.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going to leave them off. I'm just doing football. And
Okay.
when I when I grew up, I was actually a bigger Ohio State basketball fan than I was
Okay.
football fan. So I'm just going with football for you.
All right, that works.
Okay. So number 5, current Buckeye.
Is it Jeremiah Smith?
It is. It is. I mean, he could honestly move up this list.
Yeah.
He really could. He's got one more year left at Ohio State. He turned down $10 million at
Yes.
another unnamed school to stay at Ohio State.
Miami.
Right. Well, that's where he's from. I
Yep.
mean, you can't blame him. But I
Yeah.
mean, he wants to be a Buckeye.
Mhm.
How can I argue with that? So automatically he's top 5. So
I
there's 5 right there.
I like it. I won't say anything else about him because he makes my list just a little bit higher. My number
Okay.
5 is Craig Krenzel. And,
Oh,
so
Colonel Craig.
yes, so I started watching football, like, got heavy into football maybe a year or 2 before that national title season in '02. And Krenzel, if anybody doesn't know, he got the Buckeyes starting job at the end of '01. He led Ohio State to an upset win over Michigan and their first win in Ann Arbor since 1987. And in 2002, as I was just becoming this massive college football fan, I watched him lead the Buckeyes to the national championship. And if anybody has listened to our episode, The Top 5 College Football Games, I talked about Ohio State over Miami being my number 1, that double overtime game. Krenzel scored the game-winning 1-yard TD in it. And
Yep.
there is a play that season. Dave, I'm curious if you remember
I
this.
was
Do you?
just gonna say, you can't go without saying, "Holy Buckeye!"
Yes, there we go. That's what I was going to
It
say.
was 4th down, back against the wall with
Yes.
Purdue, and you toss it up on a fly route to Michael
Uh-huh.
Jenkins, and boom, there it
It's
is.
just amazing. And
Okay.
here's the reason
Well,
he's my number 5 really, is that he's not the most talented guy on the field, but he worked hard. He had a lot of clutch gene in him, went 24-3 in his career. I love a dude who just outperforms what people think he should be able to do. So that's my number 5. Dave, I'll
okay.
kick it back to you for your number 4.
Okay. Well, I have another question.
Oh, yeah.
So that's both of our first ones at number 5.
Uh-huh.
How many Pro Football Hall of Famers do you have on your list?
Oh, I don't well, actually, I'm looking. I don't have any. I don't think.
Whoa. So
Yeah.
I have 2, and I have 1 on the cusp
Okay.
of being a Pro Football Hall of Famer. And I grew up in Canton,
Mhm.
so that's a big deal because
Okay,
the Pro
makes
Football Hall of
sense.
Fame
Yeah.
is right there. And my next one, he's a Pro Football Hall of Famer. You see him on TV all the time. He's a wide receiver from the 1980s. And when you look, I mean, my first 2 are wide receivers. So
Yeah. Wide receiver
number
you.
4, number 4, and I don't know that everybody knows this guy, but Chris Carter.
Oh, yes.
Chris Carter. I mean, he made some ridiculous catches. He was Jeremiah Smith before Jeremiah Smith was a thing. He maybe doesn't have the body that Jeremiah Smith does, but
Mhm.
he made some ridiculous catches and then went on to be a fantastic wide receiver in the NFL for both the Eagles and the Minnesota Vikings. And now he's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So, Chris Carter, he's my number 4.
So, yeah, I love Chris Carter. Doesn't make my list just because it's a little bit obviously before my time.
Yeah,
But,
right.
this is where we have the crossover, Dave, because my number 4 was your number 5, Jeremiah Smith.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
I've watched Randy Moss play in person. I watched him play in college back when he was at
Oh,
Marshall
yeah.
University.
Heck yeah.
And even watching Randy Moss, I can say that Jeremiah Smith may be the most impressive receiver I've watched play the college game. And you already hit some of the pieces as to why he's my number 4. His commitment to the Buckeyes as schools are throwing money at him in this whole NIL era, and the fact that he's still here is huge. I think he was obviously one of the core pieces for the 2025 national championship. He caught that 56-yard pass to seal things against Notre Dame. He had the just insane game he had against Oregon, where he was absolutely unstoppable in the playoffs. And I'm with you. I think this is a dude who can continue to rise up the ranks in Buckeyes history. So that's my number 4. I'll keep it at that. Dave, who's your number 3?
Okay, so a boy from Canton, Ohio. I'm going old on you again. I'm not going all the way back to like Jack Tatum or anybody like that, but there are some back there. But another one from the '80s. He's probably the only person I know to be on a Wheaties box as a high school athlete.
Ooh, I'm trying to think who that is.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
drawing a blank.
yep. He's on the cusp of being a Hall of Famer. He is on the cusp. I'm going defense here now.
Okay. I don't know.
Okay. So, I believe he was drafted by Detroit, and he played for Detroit for quite a while, and then he went over to the Buffalo Bills and played for the Bills for a while. And he is really on the cusp of being a Hall of Famer, but it's Chris Spielman.
Okay, okay. I'm tracking now.
Chris Spielman. And there again, his commitment to not while he was in school, but after he graduated, he gives so much back to the university. His wife's name is on the breast cancer center
Yeah.
at Ohio State University. So his wife Stephanie, and just his support of her, and just the guy that he is. I
Mhm.
mean, it's bigger than football.
Yeah.
So and he was pretty much from where I grew up, maybe about 15 minutes from where I grew up, and just gotta love the guy.
Yeah. Dave, it's interesting. Our lists are going like totally different eras, which, that's the whole idea of this podcast. And I like it because I'll be
Yep.
honest, some of these guys, I'm aware of them, but didn't get to watch them play during that era.
Yeah.
So my number three is somebody I got to watch play. And this one, I'm not even going to go, there's no stats that back this up. There's just vibes for me. And it is Brian Hartline. And anybody
Oh,
that's listened to
heck
episode
yeah.
6, we did a podcast episode, me and one of my friends, where we talked about our top 5 favorite players we've watched in person. And
Yep.
Hartline was on that list. I got to watch that '06 Buckeyes team in person. My wife took me. I think it was, I don't know if it was for Christmas, my birthday. She took me to a game, and I got to see Troy Smith play. I got to see
Yep.
Ted Ginn, and
Yep.
Hartline was my favorite player on that team.
You
And my
know what?
reason, oh, what you got?
That's another Stark County guy for you. He went
Yeah,
he
there you
went
go.
to
Yeah.
he went to my rival high school.
Oh,
He went to Glen Oak. I went to Hoover. So,
okay. Okay.
I've known all about Heartline my whole life, and solid pick, man. That
Yeah,
is awesome.
I just love him because we're now known as wide receiver U. And for anybody that's like, well, why are y'all wide receiver U? We both had Jeremiah Smith on our list.
Yep.
We've got guys like Marvin Harrison Jr., Jackson Smith and Jibba, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Terry McLaurin, Emeka Ibuka, and Carnell Tate. He was part of our coaching staff for the 2025 national championship. So I think his departure from the Bucks is going to
Oh,
be a massive loss. I don't know.
agreed.
I don't know about you. Are you nervous about him not being on the staff anymore?
100%. But also, he needed to grow, and
He did.
I can't wait to see what he does at USF.
Agreed.
So,
I wouldn't be surprised if maybe somewhere in the future, if he doesn't make his way back to the Buckeyes when Ryan Day decides to hang it up. I mean, we'll see what he looks like as a head coach,
hey,
but I wouldn't
okay,
be upset about
okay.
it.
Yep.
So with that, who's your number two?
So I'm going to go to when I was in school at Ohio State. So it's not too old, but it's a little ways back there. And who's the best running back you know to come out of the '90s?
Eddie George.
Agreed. He's not on my list,
Oh,
but
okay.
he is an awesome dude. I used to run into him on campus all the time.
Okay,
Um,
that's awesome.
so I'm a pretty decent sized guy. I'm 6 foot and I have pretty big hands. When I shake his hand wraps around mine, and I'm like, oh my gosh. But just a heck of a nice guy. I'm glad to see he's got the head coaching job at Bowling Green.
Yeah.
I hope he does well there. He's not on my list, and he won a Heisman Trophy, but I have to say that he wasn't the only reason that he won a Heisman Trophy. I believe it was the number 3 or 4 Heisman Trophy winner that year.
Hmm.
The runner up, number 3 or 4, is the reason that he got his Heisman Trophy, and he is an NFL Hall of Famer, Orlando Pace.
Oh, that's a good pick. That's a good one.
Because I mean, come on, Eddie George should be in that spot, but the only reason he's not is because Orlando Pace he cleared the way for him. You
Yeah.
know, so we used to take pancakes to football games and throw them every time he had a pancake block. And I mean, we were out of pancakes by the end of the first quarter.
That's
He
awesome.
he was he was something else. So Orlando Pace, my number two, NFL Hall of Famer, just awesome Buckeye.
I love it. So I'm gonna go back in time. I'm going back. We're looking at the '70s here. So my top two. I'm kind of previewing my number one here. I
I
went.
think I know your number two.
Who do you think my number two is?
I think you're going to go with Archie.
I am going with Archie Griffin.
Yep,
So,
yep,
hey,
yep.
I obviously didn't get to watch him play live. This was well before I was born. But you've got the only two-time Heisman Trophy winner in history, a two-time
Correct,
All-American,
correct.
Maxwell Award winner, two-time Big Ten MVP, first person ever to start in 4 Rose Bowls, and he won 4 Big Ten championships. And he's got a statue outside of both the Rose Bowl and the Horseshoe.
Yeah,
No one's, I mean, we're
yep.
talking the '70s. We're in the 2020s, mid 2020s. Nobody's been able to replicate 2 Heisman trophies. I have a signed Archie Griffin jersey hanging up in my
Oh,
office,
awesome.
gift from my wife. So my wife, while we were dating, between the Buckeyes game, the Archie Griffin jersey, I was like, this girl's the one for me. So I don't even have to say anything else. His legacy speaks for itself. That's my number two, Archie Griffin. Dave, I'm curious to hear who your number one is because you said Archie Griffin's not on your list, right?
Nope, he's not. And like I said, he's one of the ones that is above and kind of above and beyond. There were those three. I mean,
Yeah.
Arch no nobody can touch Archie Griffin. He has 2 Heisman trophies.
Yes.
Jack Nicklaus, best golfer, and Jesse Owens stared down Hitler. So I
Yep.
mean, those are my three that are above anything.
Yeah.
So he kind of is the top of my football list, but I can't put him on there.
Oh, I totally get it.
However, my number one is a running back.
Okay, running back. So it's not Eddie
80s,
George. Oh,
early
80s.
80s. He was the he was the number two in Heisman Trophy ballots behind Doug Flutie.
I I'll be honest, I'm drawing a blank if we're talking early '80s.
Yep, nobody's going to get this one. Um, Keith Byers.
What's funny
And
is I'm Googling this as you were saying it, and I was like, I should throw this name out there because he popped up as the Big Ten MVP in '84.
yeah, yeah. And he would have had even better stats than he had when he left Ohio State, but he had some injuries his senior year.
Hmm.
Um, but one of my first memory, and here's the whole reason: it's my first memory of watching Ohio State football. It was Ohio State against Illinois, and they give the ball to Keith Byers. Keith Byers starts running around the right hand side of the line. He goes cutting down the field, and his shoe goes flying off. His shoe just goes flying, probably about the 45-yard line of Illinois, and his
Yeah.
shoe goes flying off. And it was like he kicked it into another gear after he lost his shoe, and he went all the way to the end zone. It's just one of the most unbelievable runs I've ever seen. You can hardly tell who's actually making the run because the video quality is so bad. Um, but I just remember that, and that's what really drew me into Ohio State football. And he's a great guy. He's still in the Dayton area. He stays attached to the Ohio State program, and he's my number one just because he drew me in.
I totally love it. One of the things I really love is hearing people's number ones on this podcast because it comes for various reasons. Some people go by stats. If we're talking sports, they'll go by some iconic memory they had, like you just talked about, or maybe they've met somebody. So it's always interesting to hear where somebody lands. And Dave, I'm gonna be honest with you. My number one, I have probably a little bit I'm gonna say. I'm gonna try to see if I can make it quick, but it probably won't be quick, and I apologize. But my number one you've already mentioned, and my number one is Jesse Owens as my favorite Buckeye.
Oh yeah,
I'm a
Yep.
former track and cross country guy, and there's a lot of people that don't know he was the Buckeye Bullet. Back in the 30s, you didn't get to compete for an NCAA championship as a freshman. And as a freshman, this dude set 3 world records, won 3 Big Ten freshman titles, won a gold medal, a silver medal in the indoor and outdoor track and field championships, and set a world record in the long jump. In his sophomore season, if no one has seen the movie Race or you're not familiar with Jesse Owens' backstory, he has the greatest day in track history that has ever occurred. In a span of 45 minutes, he matched the world record for the 100-yard dash, set the world record for the long jump, and broke the world record in the 220-yard dash and the 220-yard low hurdles. And his 220-yard records actually beat the metric records for the 200-meter sprint and the 200-meter hurdles. So he took 6 world records in 45 minutes. Won the NCAA title that year in the 100, the 220 dash, the 220 low hurdles, and the broad jump. And then his junior year, he won all 42 events he entered. He never lost. At the 1936 NCAA championships, he set the world record in the 100, won the 200, won the 220 low hurdles, and won the broad jump. And he didn't get a senior season. I will not go into a big rant, but his amateur eligibility was taken for ridiculous reasons by the guy that was over the U.S. Olympic Committee at the time. But even with only 2 seasons that counted, he holds the NCAA record for 8 individual titles. And what's wild is because of racism at the time, he wasn't even allowed to live on campus. When the team traveled, he had to stay at blacks-only hotels. He had to eat carry-out or eat at blacks-only restaurants, and he didn't even have a scholarship. You talked about him staring down Hitler. During the Olympics, he won 4 gold medals, breaking the Olympic record in the 100-meter dash, almost equaling his world record in the long jump, breaking the world record in the 200, and being part of the world record-setting 4x100-meter relay team. And at some point in time, so if we go through his career, he held 11 world records, won 9 Big Ten titles, 8 NCAA titles, 6 USA track and field titles, and 4 Olympic gold medals. And his career was cut short. He only got 1 Olympics, only got 2 college seasons that counted. He's in numerous Hall of Fames. USA Track and Field has named awards after him, and many consider him the greatest track athlete of all time. So stared down racism, stared down fascism, and even though due to the times, the school really wasn't being supportive of him, he still was out there dominating the field and doing it as a public figure and doing it in a time where we saw mass racism, mass fascism. Had to put him at number 1 on my list. I tried to keep it short. Sorry, Dave. I went on a rant. I love Jesse Owens.
When I told you he was on my list that's even bigger and
Yes.
bolder and just supersedes everything else.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what he is.
Yep, 100%. Well, Dave, I always ask people before we wrap up, any closing thoughts you have, any beef you have with my list today?
No. I mean, there are lots of Heisman Trophy winners that we left off.
We did. We did.
But I'm looking here, and I don't have a single Heisman Trophy winner on my list, and I don't think you did either.
Well, I had Archie. So I had Archie on there.
Oh,
Yep.
Archie. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And Archie is a heck of a nice guy. When I was in school, he was the assistant athletic director, and you would run into Archie everywhere. And he was just the nicest guy. One time we kind of surprised him, and we were in a fencing match of all things. And we came out of the fencing match, and I said to my roommate, I said, "Oh, there's Archie," and he said, "Oh yeah, let's go say hi." So he went and said hi to Archie, and he kind of caught him off guard, and Archie almost slammed him up against the
Oh my
lockers because
gosh.
he was just so caught off guard. But he was shaking his hand. He was like, "Oh hey buddy, how are you?" He was just so excited. Right. That's Archie. And it's great to have tradition like that.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of where I went. So,
Dave,
um,
I'm so jealous because so I was accepted into Ohio State, but I stayed at home because Marshall was free and Ohio State was not. So,
yeah, yeah.
free beat. out-of-state tuition, and I'm very jealous. I would have been fanboying out at all these experiences you've had. If I ran into Archie Griffin, I probably wouldn't be able to speak, and I would embarrass myself. So it would not be a good day for me because I just couldn't function as an adult.
It was just crazy because guys like that were running around campus. The day after Eddie George won the Heisman
Yeah.
Trophy, and then he went on the show Coach. Do you remember
Mhm.
the show Coach?
That's I
Graham T. Nelson.
I think I do.
So he was the coach of I believe the Minnesota State Golden Eagles or something like that. But then he went on to become the coach of a fake NFL team down in
Mhm.
Florida, and they had Eddie George on because they were thinking about drafting him to their NFL team. And Eddie George was on the show, and he brought his Heisman Trophy with him, and it was a comedy. So one of the guys, one of the assistant coaches, he said, "Can I see your trophy?" And Eddie gave him the trophy, and he dropped it on Eddie's toe and broke his foot.
Oh my
It
gosh.
not for real on the
Oh, okay,
TV
part as
show.
part of the
Not
show, as part of the
right,
show.
right,
Got it.
right. But it was crazy because Eddie went to class. So the next day, it was like on a Tuesday. So Wednesday morning, I walked out of the campus cafeteria area. I walked out. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning. There's me and Eddie George. He's the only person out there. And I'm like, "Hey, Eddie, I saw you on Coach last night." He's like, "Oh, you did? You actually saw that?" And I was like, "Yeah, I saw you. You did a great job." And he was like, "Thanks, man. Thanks. I really appreciate that." So it's hard to leave Eddie George off my list.
Yeah.
But yeah, Orlando Pace took that one.
No, makes total sense. And
And
Dave,
honestly, I bet if you asked Eddie George, he might say the same thing.
I could see that. I could
Orlando
definitely
Pace
see
was
that.
just ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, Dave, I really appreciate you coming on here and number one, answering some questions that listeners had, helping people plan for what to do during storm season and really all year long, and also talking about our favorite Buckeyes because that's something that I love to talk about. As my daughter and I said, you're the biggest celebrity that's been on this podcast. So anybody that lives in a hurricane-prone area,
you,
if you're
you
not
had
following Dave, you got to
you had
follow
a
him.
you had a gold medal winner on here. No, no, I
You're on
refuse to
TV all
take.
the time.
No,
You're on
no,
TV every day.
no.
So-
I did not win an Olympic gold.
well, you know what? When it comes to hurricane and storm predictions, we're giving you an Olympic gold medal on this podcast. So
Well, thank
really
you,
appreciate your time. For all the listeners, thank you all for tuning in. If you've not done so yet, like the podcast, subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, refer someone to come check this thing out. As I always say, if you have a suggestion for a topic you'd like us to cover, you can send those in to generationalfave5@gmail.com. That's generational, FAVE, the number 5 at gmail.com. Thank you all for tuning in.